Hi everybody, Alan Gilman here. I'm on location. I don't know if you saw that little beginning there, as faced some technical difficulties. This is my first TorahBytes Live on location. Some of you know that I am in Victoria, British Columbia for a teaching tour. And so I'm here until the morning of Monday, May the 21st. I have several meetings in the Victoria area. If you're from here, it would be great to see you. Contact me for itinerary details. Anyway, so as I said, this is my first on-location version of TorahBytes Live, and I couldn't have picked a more beautiful spot. I don't know what this is all going to be like. I was getting ready in another location, and then the gardener started something that sounded like sounded like a chainsaw, trimming, sculpting rather, bushes. So first of all, let me tell you where I am. If you're just tuning in, you could always go back to the beginning. And as I mentioned, this is the first time I'm trying this exactly, so I could tell that my face is in a bit of shadow and light, and it's very sunny, and that's why. And hopefully this sounds okay, and it looks okay. In the background is a castle. I am at the Hatley Park National Historic Site, and it's the home of Hatley Castle, which was built in the early 1900s. It was originally a personal residence. Then for several years it was the Naval College. And now it's the home of Royal Road University. I'm actually staying not too far from here, and I've been to Victoria several times. My family and I lived in the Vancouver area 2 different times over 16 years, and sometimes we'd get to come over to Vancouver Island, where Victoria is. And but I've been here several times since I've started my teaching ministry back in 2012, and it's always a great treat to come to one of the prettiest and actually driest parts of Canada. Victoria, BC is the capital of the province of British Columbia. It is on Vancouver Island, which is a large island off the Pacific coast. So the capital is here. It's not on the mainland. And it's actually of Canada's cities, it has some of the most sunshine per year. Vancouver is known for its abundance of rain, and a lot of it misses Victoria. So it's a very beautiful place, and I didn't know that this park and this castle was here until I drove by it the other day, and I've come out here a couple of times, and it is absolutely gorgeous. So you can see the castle in the background. You could look it up online. But I'm going to try to show you more of the location where I am. I'm going to try to flip the camera around like that, see if that worked. Okay, try it again. Come on. Okay, there we go. So we're also overlooking the first body of water you see there, past the couple parking lots, is a lagoon. And then the other side of the lagoon is the Pacific Ocean. And what you're seeing there, if you can see the mountains, that's part of the Olympic Peninsula of Washington State. And those are the Olympic Mountains. The Olympic National Park is there. And the tallest mountain, and I'm sorry, I don't know which one it is exactly, or even if we could see it from here, but the tallest mountain is Mount Olympus. Yes, there's a Mount Olympus in the United States, and it's about 8,000 feet. Again, from my vantage point, looking at the camera, I can't tell if you could see the snow-capped peaks, but it's absolutely gorgeous. And so let me turn this back around again, and there we are. Okay, so what a great place to talk about this week's topic, which is climate change. The Torah portion, it's doubled again, as I've mentioned other times. And I've been doing these TorahBytes Live lately on YouTube Live, but just because of doing it this way, I thought that Facebook would be the better place, and later on I'll make sure this remains posted here and posted on YouTube as well. So welcome again if you're just joining now, and remember at any point you can go back to the beginning. So this week's Torah portion is doubled. I've mentioned in the past how there are 7 leap years in a 13-year cycle in the Jewish calendar, and on non-leap years, and a leap year has an extra month, 13 months instead of 12. On non-leap years like this one, which is only 12 months, you have to double up some of the Torah readings in order to cover the whole books of Moses in the year. So the 2 readings are called in Hebrew Bahar and Behukatai, and it takes us from Vayikra, the book of Leviticus, chapter 25, verse 1, through chapter 27 and verse 34. What I did in the TorahBytes message that came out on Tuesday is I pointed out the passage that speaks about how the land would respond to the people's keeping of God's ways. And that's an interesting concept, and we have a heightened awareness of the environment today, and by and large, I believe that's a really good thing. Going all the way back to the book of Genesis, God called us to be the stewards of the planet. We're to take care of planet Earth. And it's interesting that so many people who wouldn't profess any kind of faith in God, that might even deny the existence of God. There's a plane going over. I don't know what you can hear. Even people who deny the existence of God somehow have this sense of urgency that we need to take care of the planet. And I know that this often can go overboard to the point of even worshiping it. But another way that I think the extreme is expressed is the extreme worry that we have today over changing climate. I know some people don't think it's controversial. Other people think it's controversial. Some people think climate change, the claim of climate change science is bunk. I'm not here to debate that today. Certainly we observe that there's changes in temperature and weather phenomenon in the earth, and whether it's part of a normal cycle or there's really something big going on that might have disastrous results in the near or distant future, it just might be. And what the reasons are, again, we don't, I want to do what I can do, and that is give a biblical perspective. And I believe very clearly in the Bible, there's a deep relationship between human behavior and the effect on the environment. So in the Torah portion, we saw how, based on whether or not the people of Israel lived a good, moral, spiritual, godly life, the land would respond favorably to that. And if not, if they turned to other gods, went their own way, neglected God and His Word, then the land would respond negatively. And so we see from there the connection between a people's morality to the environment. And this is not something that some people, when they think of God's Word in the Hebrew Scriptures, commonly called the Old Testament, they talk about it as something that's archaic, that it was just for the time. And I believe there are elements of what we call the Torah that was for the people of Israel at that time in history. But there's so much that God reveals to the people that was meant for us to understand that these are His ways for all people for all time. And one of the ways I know we can be confident, that this idea that how we live has an effect on the environment, we know that's true because of what God says concerning the peoples who inhabited the land of Israel prior to Joshua and Israel taking the land back so many years ago. God had told Moses that one of the reasons for the judgment on the peoples was their way of life. And he uses very graphic terminology. So back in Leviticus chapter 18, which we looked at, couple weeks ago, it says that the reason the land vomited out the peoples was because of their immorality, and in particular in the sexual realm, that their misguided behavior, their ungodly behavior resulted in the land not being able to tolerate them. Now, I don't know how that works. It can almost sound superstitious. And when I think of superstition, I think of how the way superstition works. I don't believe in superstition, but the way superstition works is something you say or something you do has an effect on the universe, even though there's no direct correlation between that action and the reaction in the universe. It's sort of the kind of thing that we thought when we were kids. If you step on a bug, it's going to rain, or if you stepped on a crack of the sidewalk, it would cause something bad to happen. And that's like all the other kinds of superstitions. Here in Canada, we're in the middle of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and players actually believe. Now, whether they actually believe or it's a just-in-case sort of thing, they have all sorts of customs that they wholeheartedly commit themselves to in the hopes that, one famous one has to do with their undergarments and wearing the same undergarments game after game, and how they think that doing this is somehow going to affect how they play. That is a superstition. There's no real correlation between what they're doing and the outcome. And so I think some of us almost think of what God commanded the people of Israel in terms of, if you behave, then the land will respond kindly to you. And that sounds like superstition. It's not superstition for a couple of reasons. First, there really is a God, and there really is a God who is the primary owner of the earth, and he's put the earth in our care, and if we don't relate to him properly according to truth and reality, then it's going to disturb the balance of life. God has established it that way. But I think there's more to it. I think there's more to it than that. I attempted some of this in the in what I wrote this past week. I think there's more direct correlation between our behavior and how the land then relates back to us. And I think there's some people of faith that might even be uncomfortable with some of this, because it almost seems that, sadly, among people of faith, we believe that we could live any way we want, we could treat the earth any way we want, and it's kind of no big deal. For a lot of Christian believers, there's this idea that the material world is substandard and it's doomed unto destruction, and therefore it's a piece of garbage, and it's all going to burn up one day, and so it doesn't really matter what we do. So just stick to the so-called spiritual things and don't care so much about the material things. It's so unbiblical. It should hardly be worth mentioning. God created this world very good. It's been affected by bad human behavior, and that's part of the point. So God has cursed the earth because of what the Bible calls sin, and this is the world in which we live in. But his call upon our lives to take care of this planet has never been revoked. We are still responsible for this place, and we're responsible for how we use our bodies. We're responsible for where we live. We're responsible for making the environment habitable and healthy for people. And I don't really understand how the renewal is going to work when the Messiah returns, but there's a far deeper connection between the world as we know it today and how the world will be in what the Bible calls the age to come. We're not just, this is not the phony, this is not the unreal, this is the real thing. It matters how we live and how we treat this earth that we've been given responsibility for. And so I think we do need to take time to look at human behavior and how it affects the environment. It's what you call it, ironic or hypocritical. Like, here I am about 5,000 kilometers, 3,000 miles away from home. I flew here on 2 airplanes and driving all over the place. But maybe it's about time we started looking at our kind of global, extravagant kind of lifestyle. Worldwide shipping of cheap goods and all the comings and goings that we do. With the invention of the car and the creation of highways many years ago, it enabled us to travel long distances very quickly. And so many of us work far away from where we live, and the amount of waste that we create just to live the kind of lifestyle that we think we need to live, I think that's worth looking at. I may not agree. I don't agree with taxation policies penalizing people for their use of energy. I do not think that's a good idea because it's the poorer people that suffer under those policies. I also don't believe that in the long run those things will be effective. I would rather that we have forums whereby I could share what I'm sharing here, and where more and more people voluntarily learn that we need to take care of a world in which we live, and so maybe we should be more careful in how we treat the environment. So there's that. We live in such an affluent society, and we waste so much. Maybe we should give that some thought and do something about it. There's the other element that I think has a closer connection. So yes, how we live, God responds to how we live. That affects the environment in which we live. There's that direct thing, how we treat the soil and the air has a direct relationship. But there's another one, and it's going back to Leviticus 18, and we know that the illicit, immoral behavior of the peoples cost them and the environment dearly. And so I've been giving some thought to how the breakdown of the family has a very dire effect on the environment. According to the Bible, the traditional family of husband, wife, and children is to be the basic building block of society. And while there are reasons why people are single and they don't have children, and some people are not called to be married and have children, but by and large, that is the basic building block of society. And the scriptures are pretty clear in the way God's ways are delineated, that if we follow God's ways, we will strengthen the traditional family. And to depart from God's ways and to follow other ways of sexual human behavior outside of the traditional family will result in the breakdown of society and will have an effect on the environment. The amount of broken homes, the redundancy alone of children who are now somehow under the care of a multiplicity of parents. Now, I'm myself from a broken home, and I know the devastating effects of being a child of divorced parents, and what that brought to me emotionally, personally, but now with so many people are not married, they're still having children, and the serial relationships and children from various relationships, and then the great increase in abortions. I don't think it's too difficult to see a direct line between those behaviors, the social, economic, relational effects of those behaviors, and their effect on the world in which we live. And it's going to affect the environment. And just the amount of production waste that comes as a result of the breakdown of the family alone. And I haven't done statistical analysis of this. Maybe somebody else has already. What is the carbon footprint of this kind of new world order that we have that has given up on the traditional family? I think that's something that's worth thinking about. And this breakdown of the family, it affects Bible believers too. Our whole view of children and waiting long time before children come into our lives, we don't really understand the effect this is having on ourselves, on society. And I know this kind of topic upsets a lot of people, and I'd be very happy to dialogue with you. You could leave comments here, or you could send me an email, either to info@torahbytes.org or alan@alangilman.ca. I'd be very happy to discuss these things with you further. If there's elements from a biblical perspective that I've gotten wrong, I'd be happy to hear about that. If you think my perspective on the Bible is wrong, I'd be open to engaging with you as well on that, because I don't believe the Bible simply because it's the Bible. I believe the Bible because I believe it really is true. And I've been studying it for over 40 years, and that's not a big deal on one hand. It's just I've striven so hard to try to see whether or not the Bible really does reflect the reality of the world in which we live, and I believe that it does. And so much of the Bible comes down to that it's given us a revelation of God's ways, and if we live according to those ways by, first of all, trusting in God and trusting in His provision of the Messiah, experiencing forgiveness for our sins and having right relationship with God, and then from there living a lifestyle that reflects that reality, living a godly life is going to have so many beneficial effects on ourselves, on our loved ones, on society, on the environment. And so again, please feel free to comment. It'd be great if you subscribe to my YouTube channel. And do send me a line and comment. And so until next time, this is Alan Gilman for TorahBytesLive. Now, how do I turn this off? There it is. Goodbye, everybody.